welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the new national minimum wage, which was assented to by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria recently. We'll be discussing what workers should expect, what organized private sector should expect, and also the ordinary citizens. We also have news stories for you. We will be right back.
Rosanna Tavesdern, co-author of award-winning book titled Measuring Sustainable Development Goals Performance, has revealed that for sustainable development to be achieved, there is a need for a new social contract. According to her, with the new wave of globalization, achieving sustainable development goals calls for synergies and coherence of three pillars, which are based on principles of democracy, solidarity, and gender justice.
Social development entails trade-offs. There is no natural trade-off between social, economic, and environmental dimension of the development. And the politicians are bound to make the policy choices. And the framework which we provide scientifically offers what we call Pareto optimal solutions. I would like to detail what that simply implies. The Pareto optimal framework implies that the society from a stage 1 to move to the stage 2 has to make sure that the condition, nobody's condition is worsened and the condition of some is improved. So which means unless we ensure these two conditions, we cannot state that we are having an improvement in the society. And the framework that we provide is scientifically offering, based on statistical data, Pareto optimal solutions. So which implies if we take into consideration the challenges of employers within the ILO context, the workers and the government, based on individual development indicators, we are able to derive solutions that are Pareto optimal. So all the three partners, governments, employers, and workers, are seeing, based on actual data, that what the model is deriving is the best for the community.
Following the President's assent to the new National Minimum Wage Act, Labour leaders have commended President Bola Tinubu for the decision. In an exclusive interview with TVC News, the Labour leaders thanked the President for the effort to ensure that workers earn a better wage with the reduction of the years of review of the National Minimum Wage Law from 5 years to 3 years. The signing of the bill into law by President Tinubu ends months of negotiations between the federal government, organized labor, and organized private sector. The Labour leaders are of the view that financial autonomy for local government areas will enhance good governance in the country.
With over 100% increment in salaries of an average low-income earner, though Labour was of the high hope that we'll be getting nothing less than 250, but because of other considerations. So our belief is that it will not be too much for Labour to sacrifice by conceding to that 70,000 naira.
Throughout the period of negotiation, compared to previous years, this is the quickest one so far. President Bola Tinubu have shown, a high level of patriotism and feelings and concern for the workers. And as much as we appreciate the federal government for this benevolence, it is equally very, very germane that we should let them know what matters is how to scale up the purchasing power of the naira.
It's an interesting and commendable development, and it has been a long time coming. We've had these discussions for so long, and it is finally here. But while the President has signed this new minimum wage, unfortunately, it does not meet the current reality of the country. And this is because the economic situation has worsened in recent times. We've had skyrocketing inflation. We've had the worst food insecurity ever, and we've just had social conditions that have made sure to put people under, such that 70,000 naira does not offer enough wager to the realities of people. So we had hoped for more, but I mean, 70,000 naira is small. And so why we have 70,000 naira, I think the task at hand is for state authorities to effectively implement even the 70,000 naira that has been put in place now, and to make sure that every worker gets his or her due of that money. Meanwhile, while we try to work on the country, we say that it is not enough to move this minimum wage to 70,000. What is needed for Nigerians to achieve a true state of stability is to offer a living wage that helps people, you know, meet up to the standards of living and meet up to an appreciable standard of living condition. And that would mean the government's true investment in public infrastructure and in the economy of this situation, in the way that of this country, in the way that empowers citizens to truly participate in governance and benefit from the resources that we have been blessed with. Only that can we realize a living wage, you know, that works for everybody.
The reality on the ground is that they still have to do more in the coming period. The 70,000 is a progress, but 70,000 as a minimum wage structure in the civil service is still not enough, given the rate of inflation and the rising cost of living. And so for us, what we are demanding is a living wage. And to put also political office holder under the same wage structure as those in the civil service. That is what we are also demanding. So that what is good for the goods is also good for the gander.
It's good that we eventually have a new minimum wage, even though considering the inflationary trend, it falls short of the expectation of the average worker, and it's really not going to take so many people anywhere. But be that as it may, it is still a welcome development that at least we have something, and that going forward we will be negotiating this every 3 years, which means that at least within the course of the present administration, another new one will probably be negotiated and come effect.
On the Proper TV segments this week, I'll be speaking with the Director General of MINIT, Comrade Issa Aremu. It brings us up to speed on the need for organized labor to ensure full implementation of the newly signed 70,000 naira minimum wage by the federal government of Nigeria. Take a listen.
It's good to have you on the program.
Okay, to you I want to say special greetings from Ilorin to all your viewers. And, let me commend you for the wonderful program you are doing through the platform to promote knowledge about what is going on in the labor market. I think TVC Labor Lens is rated as among the best platform to promote labor education in Nigeria.
Thank you, sir. A lot is happening in the world of work, and information that workers would actually be interested in right now is the accent of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the 70,000 naira as new national minimum wage. And we are the DG of MINILS, and we are a very, very renowned labor activist before now and even now. How would you rate the negotiation process that's brought about the 70,000 naira as the new wage?
Well, thanks so much, Sharon. I think I agree with you that guest news now in the labor market is the signing into law the 2024 national minimum wage. The most important news now in the labor market is the 2024 new National Minimum Wage Act. And July 22nd, we go down in history, an important date in the history of minimum wage review in Nigeria. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in the presence of the Senate President, presence of a representative of the Speaker of the House of Reps, as well as other critical stakeholders, signed into law the 2024 Minimum Wage Act. And we shouldn't take this for granted, because It's a sign of statesmanship on the part of the president. It's a sign of statesmanship on the part of the National Assembly, that regardless of the partisan or political divide in the National Assembly, they could collaborate together to jointly agree that Nigerian workers deserve a new deal in terms of the new minimum wage. I would like to salute the organized labor for the good fight that they put in place in the past 1 year or 1.5 years. When I talk of organized labor, I'm talking of Nigeria Labour Congress as well as the Trade Union Congress. I will also want to appreciate the Nigeria Employer Consultative Association, NECA. Don't forget that this has been a tripartite struggle, how to put it that way, government, employers of labor, as well as organized labor. And I think we should also acknowledge the role of the state governors, ably led by the chairman of the Governors Forum, the governor of Kwara State, Governor Abraham Abrazak, for the understanding to have a common ground. I mean, you are a seasoned labor reporter, Sharon. You know what it takes to go into negotiation. You know the demand of labor. Initially 650,000. Labor had to come down to 250,000. You also know the offer of the government initially at 48,000. Later it moved to 60, and there was a deadlock. And of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself became more or less a chief negotiator. Within a week, he met twice with leaders of organized labor, and then eventually they all agree on the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira. And this is the sixth national minimum wage review that Nigeria has put in place since 1981, when we are the maiden national minimum wage under President Shehu Shagari. We had another review in 1990. Then we had a major significant one in year 2000. When Nigeria returned back to democracy under the leadership of Comrade Adams Oshomole. He was the NSC president and APCO president. Olusegun Obasanjo were the major review, which moved minimum wage to 5,500 by law. And of course, there was a very creative, negotiating skill that Comrade Adams also brought to say federal should pay more than that. In fact, some state ought to pay more than that. And we had federal 7,500. The national minimum wage was 5,500. Then some oil-producing states like Bayelsa, Delta, Rivers, and I think Comrade Adams Oshomole also insisted Lagos should pay almost the same rate, 7,500. Interestingly, it was President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as we know him today. He was the governor then in Lagos State. Then we had another review in 2010 under President Goodluck Jonathan, where minimum wage moved to 18,000, and of course, former President Muhammad Buhari, after engagement with Labour, also reviewed minimum wage to 30,000. So if you do the counting, this is the sixth national minimum wage review. But also, Sharon, let me underscore this point. If you play it back, all the minimum wage reviews have taken place in a democracy. The one of 1990, I can't even say it was a negotiation as well, because it came in the heat of protests or riot against structural adjustment program. It was a small review. But when you talk of robust negotiation between government, employers of labor, organized labor, it took all the other 5 national minimum wages, as we know them, took place in a democracy. So,
brings me to the next question. Which brings me to the next question. With your experience as a labor leader and now the Director General of Foremost Trade Union, Foremost Trade Education Institute, what would you say is the importance of national minimum wage negotiation towards the development of the people, especially in a democratic regime? Not regime now, in a democratic era.
Dispensation, yes. I think I have to underscore this because we shouldn't take this for granted. Because there's a level of, the knowledge gap is so low nowadays, so people are calling for other forms of government rather than democracy. I think we should let them know that democracy has its challenges, but it's the best form of government because it allows for conversation, freedom of expression, of assembly, of negotiation. Wouldn't tolerate, compromises have to be done. Freedom of expression and the media, like you do a very good job, under the military, this wouldn't have been possible. So what I'm trying to say here is that, so first is the dividends of democracy. Then talking of significance to the worker, I think what it means is that no worker will earn less than 70,000, in an establishment that has a good number of workers as defined by the law. And that's the minimum. But it also means employers can pay more. In fact, they should be encouraged to pay more. So the whole idea is that, you increase the pay of the workers. In nominal terms, when you look at from 30 to 70, that's over 133%. Although in real terms, we can debate, the level of inflation, devaluation of Naira, but in nominal terms, we have to salute all the, stakeholders for jacking minimum wage to that level. And given the fact that we now say we are going to be reviewing them every 3 years, which means the road to 3 years, we can now, if that be done periodically, we keep to that date, then we can be moving from minimum to living wage for the lowest workers who have been paid. But let me also say this, now that the act has become a reality, and I want to salute the statesmanship of the president for the way it has been quickly been resolved. Now is implementation. And this is where I want to call on organized labor, I want to call on employers of labor, as well as the federal government, that the same cooperation, the same sense of partnership they brought to this negotiation, they should now bring it to implementation. And this is where the National Salaries and Wages Commission has a very critical role to play. I think it would be nice that Salary and Wages Commission roll out the templates so that different sectors will be looking at the implication for what we normally call consequential adjustment. I'm impressed some state governments already doing that. They form committees so that, because it's one thing for the law to be made, it's another thing for the pay.
Which brings me to another conversation again. Which brings me to another conversation which is related to this. We're talking about implementation here. We have 2 state governors that have come out to say they won't be able to pay this approved minimum wage. What will be your recommendations?
No, I think it's, I don't think it's, you should talk of those who are not paying. First, the good news is that good number of states, enlightened state governors know that they cannot be promoting illegality because it's not a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's illegal, it's unacceptable to say you can pay. Not only for state governor, but all employers, including the employers of private sector. You must be able to pay as approved. It has become a law. There are only 1 or 2 few exemptions. I think there are exemptions for certain number of establishments that do not employ certain number of workers. Only those who can be exempted, but everybody must pay. In fact, another feature of this new act is that it also covers the domestic workers. So I don't think we should talk about, we should not be using example of bad practices to undermine the best practices. But I know that many state governors are already eager to pay. I know Lagos State has demonstrated that. In fact, Edo initially was the one who started paying 70,000. It has even paid. It started paying the same salary. I know Kwara State, the government has set up a committee, to work at the constitutional adjustment. In any case, the real lead employer is the federal government of Nigeria. So if federal government has agreed to pay, I don't think anybody should undermine that, as the case may be. But There will be sectoral negotiation now to look at the implications. Depending on what they could negotiate, some may apply the same 133%, some may gratuate them. Don't also forget that unions are also reasonable. They don't want to price workers out of the market. We also need to allow for pay that can protect employment. But we also, enlighten employers must also know that you must pay. Yeah.
All right. On a final note, we are the Director General of the Michael Imodu Institute of Labor Studies. And it means that when it comes to educating the populace, be it citizens or trade unionists, it's a one-stop shop to get knowledge. And perhaps for some people that are not enlightened on how to come about collective bargaining agreements, are there any plans by the Institute to collaborate with other stakeholders to ensure that there is more information in the public about how the role of labor and how we can use the instrument, labor can use the requisite instruments to get results to ensure that there is good governance?
Yeah, I think you said it. We're on a one-stop shop for promoting labor education, not just in Nigeria, but the entire West Africa sub-region. And we have been doing this since 1983, when Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies was commissioned. And interestingly, it's the only institute named after #1 labor man, Michael Imodu. And our mandate is to educate, stakeholders in the labor market, namely government officials, employers of labor, private sector, of course, organized labor through their unions, on how to negotiate, how to engage in collective bargaining, how to have sense of compromises, how to resolve disputes in the world of work, because disputes are inevitable. Wherever you bring people together, there are conflicts of interest. In fact, the world of work is the world of class struggle. Employer wants to maximize profit, workers want to maximize their welfare. So there should be there will always be inevitable conflict. But to resolve it, you need to negotiate, you need to discuss. And we can see it the way the 2024 minimum wage has been done. And we look at the high sense of compromises. 650,000 naira on the part of organized labor. They moved down to 250. Government did not even want to move initially at all. It moved to 48. So these are the skills, that over the time we have been promoting at our institute. And I can say that a good number of stakeholders who participated in the negotiation, they are our students, regular students. We're also linked with international labor organizations. But our institute is modeled after the International Training Center in Turin, ITC, having partnership with them to deepen our curriculum further. Not only that, to train the trainers, build capacity for our trainers. So all what I'm saying here is that there is a lot that we need to do more to improve capacity of all the stakeholders, so that we can promote knowledge on how to motivate workforce, how to get negotiation done, and how to even have proper knowledge of compensation issues. Even during this negotiation, minimum wage is not the same as living wage. It's for the lowest paid worker, and it's the only rate that is in the law, backed up by law. Which means if anybody violates it, doesn't pay it, it can be sanctioned. Again, we need to promote knowledge on that, because in the public discourse, people mistake minimum wage for living wage. In fact, most workers are actually not on minimum wage. There are those who don't have voices. Domestic workers, workers who are not organized. So minimum wage is meant to protect them. Again, these are part of the knowledge issues that we promote education on at the institute, and we run regular programs, on a weekly basis. We're also planning a big labor summit coming up in October, in which we'll definitely partner with TVC, to really bring labor issues on the agenda. And labor issues include productivity, compensation. It also includes the issue of employment, because not just employment, but decent work. It includes occupational health and safety, because the world of work is also very precarious. You know, in recent time, it includes issue of putting an end to gender-based violence in the workplaces. So those are the issues I think we need to put on the table. And I think we are going to do this together with the Honorable Minister of State for Labor, you know, Dr. Nkiruka Oyeji-Ocha, you know, and so that we can mainstream labor issues as much as possible. Because there cannot be development, growth without productivity. And at the heart of it is the working men and women who need to be well motivated, well compensated, you know, and we also let the organized labor know that it's not everything that we ask for we can get, but it's it's work in progress. You know, I've told you.
Like they say, the struggle continues.
The struggle will always continue. And I hope we can have the 7th one, the 8th one. And of course, at the sectoral level, negotiation take place every other month then. Thousands of agreements have been signed. But what is important is that when there are conflicts, let's resolve them without avoidable strikes, avoidable lockout of the workers. Thank you very much.
The conversation will definitely continue beyond this time. Thank you very much for your time. Absolutely. It was an interesting conversation I had with you. And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching. And remember that labor creates wealth.
Absolutely. Labor creates wealth.